In today's episode, we get revenge on Karen. Our narrator bought a gorgeous cabin on a lake, built an high security fence, and planted a lovely garden, which his chickens freely roamed in while he was at work. One day he comes home to find the fence has been cut down completely and his chickens are missing. After looking around, he discovers that Karen from next door is the culprit. And as you might guess, he wasn't going to give it to her. Let's jump into the comments and see what everyone else thinks. She called lawyers, threatened lawsuits, but they were all bluffs. Kudos to you. These things are called sunken gardens. They're meant to prevent drownings of children or pets. You put up a barrier and then build a landscaping berm, so you can plant fast-growing trees and shrubs. I bet the lawyer she hired told her she couldn't afford to go to court and would lose. That's why she ran away. If a buyer wants to confirm something that they saw in the listing, the agent is supposed to verify it before presenting an offer to the seller. So the listing agent may not have immediately removed it, but the buyer's agent definitely should have requested verification of that lake access. Because of that, the listing agent probably had to amend the listing, which could cause problems for the agent's relationship with Karen. And if it happens more than once, the broker could discipline the agent. The secret to changing the world is to focus all of your energy, not to trying to change other people. And since the house didn't sell, the agent probably got a commission. But they certainly didn't make any money on that deal. And those aren't cheap to make. Say it don't spray. We were living in Seattle and found out that my grandma had passed away in Texas. We left Seattle early in the morning and drove across country. Well, about halfway through Missouri, we realized that we hadn't stopped for gas in quite a while. And I remember telling my dad. He said, "Don't worry, I know a shortcut to get us closer to the next town." And sure enough, he turned onto a narrow road that was surrounded by trees. We bounced along until we saw a house with lights on. Can we use your phone? A grumpy old man opened the door and said, No. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave. This is a private road and you're trespassing. We apologized and asked again if we could use the phone. As soon as we stepped foot on the property, he slammed the door behind us and yelled, Get off my property. I remember my dad saying, I'm sorry. We just need to use the phone. Please don't call the cops. We'll leave as soon as we're done. And he yelled back, Get off my property. I'll call the cops. Well, my dad decided that he had had enough and asked again to use the phone. Again, the guy said, No, get off my property. And my dad said, and as we turned around to leave, the guy grabbed my dad's shirt and ripped it. He then reached into my car and ripped out my brand new copy of Wolfenstein 3D. He threw both on the ground and yelled at us to get off his property. Needless to say, we didn't stick around to argue with him. We got in the car and left. You didn't say what state you're in, but here in Wisconsin, fences are considered to be the property of whoever put them up, not the neighbor they border. Therefore, she damaged your property by cutting down your fence and removing it from your land. That's definitely mischief or vandalism. Also, trespassing on your land without permission after you told her. To stay off your land is considered trespassing after a warning. Both are misdemeanors, each punishable by jail time. Good job. With her house sale collapsing, she lost thousands. She ended up going bankrupt. A fraud investigation started. Her house was foreclosed on. She lost her lake access, her property leverage, and the HOA backed away quietly. I'm surprised the cops didn't charge her with that as well. And if they did, you should have pressed charges. She damaged your property, trespassed on your land multiple times, stole 3 chickens, and stole your labor and materials that you used to build the fence. Basically, she screwed herself big time by not accepting responsibility. Kudos to you for keeping detailed records of all the damages, including timestamps and photos. Those will help substantiate your claim for compensation and punitive damages. It sounds like she chose to disregard your rights and act like an entitled jerk. So you should definitely take her to small claims court. By doing so, you will deter other people from acting like Karen, because they will know someone else ready to hold them accountable. Plus, you can use the money to make repairs and replacements. Finally, he could rebuild his fence, restore his garden, and get new chickens. Justice was served and his property was peaceful once again. She claims that she had a right to cut down the fence because it was blocking community access to the lake. However, it was his private property, and there was no legal easement or shared right-of-way. He tried to talk to Karen about it, but she just yelled at him and wouldn't listen. He then did some digging, checked with the HOA, the county records, everything, and found that nobody had authority to cut down his fence. So he filed a police report, took pictures, videos, and timestamped every detail. Weeks later, our narrator shows up at a county auction. When the bidding began, our narrator looked around and found one tiny strip of land that was being sold. It was the same strip that Karen had used to tear down his fence and gain access to the lake. He didn't hesitate. This was the exact piece of land that Karen had illegally trespassed on. Now he could buy it and legally keep her off his property. He bid and won the piece of land in cash. But Karen wasn't done with this yet. She listed her house for sale for $250,000 over its value, and in her ad mentioned having direct lake access through my land. We find out that Karen's property was in foreclosure. Opie, you really made the best of this situation. Opie, I hope you used the exact language when you told the cops that it was your private property and no one had the right to encroach on it. And let's be real, putting up barriers to block people from accessing waterfront or any natural body of water is pretty common. You should also mention that she removed your chickens from your property and therefore stole them. That could be considered a petty misdemeanor. So, OP, check your local small claims court rules on what documents you need to file and what deadlines you must meet to avoid losing your case. OP, you didn't mention how much this strip of land cost you. Was it expensive? The reason that Karen S.'s listing agent didn't immediately remove that line about the lake access is that agents are taught to list properties accurately and honestly, and that includes mentioning easements. It sounds like this. Karen learned her lesson the hard way. Thank goodness for that. The whole story reminds me of when my family moved to Washington State. I'm still angry about that to this day. 25 years later, yes, these types of stories always remind me of a famous quote from the great philosopher Socrates.